Welcome to the Bark and Bite. My name is Brandon Baker of Black Dog Barbecue, and today I'm teaming back up with Charbroil grills to show you how to make weeknight grilling easy. Now, if you find grilling on a weekday too daunting or maybe even too much of a hassle, I totally get it. You know, if you're not used to doing it, it can certainly take a little bit of time to get used to, especially when you're learning how to cook efficiently. That being said, I'm going to show you one of the tricks that we do at our house to turn one piece of meat into 3 meals that can all be cooked in under 30 minutes. So what's that trick? At our house, it's cooking flank steak. Flank steak's incredibly popular at our house. Honestly, my two daughters love it more than a ribeye or a New York strip, which are the two that I tend to gravitate to. But honestly, the flank steak's perfect if you're looking for a versatile piece of meat. The reason being is it's so much leaner than those other steaks you tend to think of for steak night that it can be used in a number of different meals, which is what I'm going to be showing you guys today. So what are those 3 meals I'm going to be making with this flank steak today? I'm going to be going with a simple meat in 2, which is something that we do often throughout the week, where I'm going to be cooking it with asparagus as well as some rice. The second meal, I'm going to show you how to make a steak salad with a little bit of blue cheese, some red onions, as well as a few more of our favorite toppings, which I'll show you here in just a little bit. And then third, one of everybody's favorites, I'm going to be showing you how to make steak tacos with this flank steak. So 3 different options that you can do with the flank steak. One's a little bit on the healthier side, one's more traditional, and one's more of that comfort food meal, thinking about those tacos. Like I mentioned earlier, all of these meals can be made in under 30 minutes, and honestly, that flank steak's only going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to cook, depending on how thick it is. So on the topic of the thickness of the steak, that's another reason why flank steak is such a nice option for a weeknight meal, honestly, because it's a little bit thinner. So that allows us to cook it at those high heat temperatures so that we're not overcooking the outside while undercooking the inside. If it was something like a bone-in ribeye, you'd have to take a different approach. So all we're gonna be doing with this flank steak today is just slathering it with a little bit of olive oil and then seasoning it with one of the rubs we have in the house. You know, if you wanted to, you could make your own rub, but honestly, that's another thing that's gonna add time. And so when we're looking at reducing time and trying to get one of those meals on the table quickly for the family, finding a nice prepackaged rub is a great way to go. There's tons of great options on the market, so just pick what you like. What I would say is when you're pairing one of those rubs with steak, you want to make sure that's not too sugary, because if you have too sugary of a rub, it will burn, especially when you're talking about grilling at high temperatures. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and season up this steak and get it on the grill. Definitely make sure to keep some paper towels nearby so you can wipe your hands off after slathering in the oil. The primary function of that oil is just so the steak doesn't stick to the grill. Got a nice salt and pepper based rub here. Got the first side, so we're gonna make sure to season the second as well. And that is all the prep that we're doing to this flank steak. It is truly that simple. No real trimming necessary. At these high heats, it's gonna burn any of that excess fat off in this quick cooking process. So just slathering with the oil and rubbing it down with your seasoning of choice, and you are good to go. All right, so out of all 3 of these meals, the only other food today we're gonna be grilling is the asparagus. So this is incredibly simple, and I can tell you that in our house, most vegetables we go very simple prep with. So we're gonna hit it with a little bit of olive oil and then garlic salt. Really, that is our #1 seasoning that we use in the kitchen for any type of vegetable you could think of. But I do want to point this out. I left the rubber bands on the asparagus on purpose just to kind of show you how I do the prep process for these, which is incredibly simple. Just going to take this bottom one off so we can hold the top in place, and we're just going to be cutting off these ends. You're not going to want to eat those. It is incredibly fibrous. You will be chewing those for days. Now, as you can see, I just threw these in a grilling basket. This is completely optional. I will say I do like using a grilling basket for asparagus and a lot of other vegetables, because that way you have less risk of them falling through the grill grates. Again, you could cook these directly on the grill grates if you wanted to, but just for the sake of making sure I don't lose any of these, it really is one of those great kitchen tools. It makes your life significantly easier. Just want to spread these out so none are sitting on top of each other at the end of the day. There we go. Hit it with a little olive oil and that garlic salt. Gonna give it a nice shake to work these seasonings in all over the asparagus. And that is it, time to get them on the grill. Today I'll be cooking up both the steak and the asparagus on Charbroil's Pro Series 3-burner gas grill. This is perfect because we're going to be cooking up with gas, which will heat up your grill faster than other heat sources. And so we're going to set the burners here to high. High heat is perfect for asparagus because that's going to give it a nice sear without it getting too limp, which is how you want it, so it's got a little bit more structure when you serve it. And then the flank steak itself over high heat is going to cook so fast, it's going to be about 10 to 12 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and get the grill going, and we'll get the steak and the asparagus on the grill. All right, we've got both on the grill. Flank steak's gonna take about 12 minutes by the guess, but I'm gonna use my instant read thermometer just to continually check that. If you don't have one, You can kind of use your finger, and I'll kind of show you that here in a minute, to check the doneness. Although if you do have an instant read thermometer, that's going to be the better option. I'll close this up and we'll let it get to cooking. 5 minutes in, so I went ahead and gave it a flip. Flank steak only needs to be flipped once when you're cooking it, so that's about all we got to do for this. So when you're talking about asparagus, that light char is really all that you're looking for. So you can see it on this one here, but that's how each of these in the grill basket is. Again, only took about 5 minutes over high heat, so super quick and easy, perfect for those weeknight meals. But I'm gonna go ahead and pull these off the grill while the steak continues to cook. All right, so 15 minutes in, I'm gonna show you where we're at. Looking about 135 right now, which is perfect, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull these. Now, earlier I mentioned the finger test, and if you don't have a thermometer, that's probably one of the better ways to go. So really what you can just do is you just wanna press here on the steak, and you wanna see if there's any give back. So you want there to be a little give, but also some firmness as well. But as long as it feels a little pillowy with a little bit of give, you can tell that your steak is really ready to be pulled off the grill. But see how I can get a little push here? That's what I'm looking for. So after you pull the steaks off the grill, you want to let those rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. If you don't have time to do that, you can slice in, it's still going to be fine, but the longer that you let it rest up until about that 15-minute mark, the more moisture it's going to retain, and moisture equals both tenderness and flavor. So in the meantime, I want to utilize that time that we're going to be letting that steak rest. So like I mentioned, we've cooked the steak and the asparagus for the meat and two meal. And really the only other thing we're gonna pair with that is going to be rice. And for the sake of time, we're gonna go with a microwavable rice because it only takes 90 seconds to do. If you didn't wanna do that and you want to cook your traditional rice, that's fine. But again, that's gonna take 25 minutes. So the meat and two is just about prepped. Now for the salad, we're gonna be using the red onions and the tomatoes. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut those up. And besides that, there's no other prep between the salad and the tacos we'll be doing here in a second. I'm gonna show you guys how I like to dice an onion, but feel free to do whatever you're most comfortable with. Make sure to keep a trash bag with you. It will just make cleaning up as you go that much easier. We will need this other half, so I'll just save this for later. I'm just gonna make 2 to 3 horizontal cuts along this onion before I also cut it from the top. So I'll show you guys that. Make sure you leave this last little bit right here just connected and you don't cut too far. It'll just make your life easier while you're cutting the onion so that honestly the onion pieces aren't sliding all over the place. I'm gonna dice them up. And the onions are done. For the cherry tomatoes, we're just gonna be cutting these in half. That's simple. I like to cut them long ways, but that's personal preference. All right, we've got those 2 vegetables prepped, and like I mentioned, that's honestly all we have to do prep work wise for all 3 of these meals besides what we've already done. So second thing I just want to note real quick, if you notice I've got another cutting board right here on top of another. I'm using this to cut my vegetables with. You do want to cut your vegetables, and in this case your steak or whatever meat you might be cooking, on a separate cutting board just to reduce the risk of contamination. So that's why I'm doing that, in case you were curious. That being said, it's been about 15 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and carve up this flank steak so we can make our meals. All right, so before I cut this, just want to tell you one quick thing about flank steak. You want to make sure that you're cutting across the grain. And that's not only flank steak, but really any cut of steak. That's just going to help tenderize the meat so it's less chewy when you're eating it. For this particular steak, I've got the grains running this way. So I'm gonna be making these horizontal cuts across. So in terms of how I'm gonna be slicing this today, now that we know which direction to cut it, I'm gonna be cubing up half of this and I'm going to be slicing half of it. That way I can give myself options depending on how I wanna use it for which meal. And then also at our house, at least, I like the slices when you're talking about steak, but my daughters prefer the cubed variety, so we like to give them options as well. Now, one thing about flank steak is even though it's thin, there are different thickness levels throughout the course of the steak. So the front end, which is the thinner end over here, tends to cook a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and cube up that side just because it tends to be a little bit easier to eat that way. Here we go. That's all we're looking for. Now that our steak is cooked and prepped, I'm gonna go ahead and start building out each of the 3 meals. Let's check it out. First up, we've got our traditional meat and 2. Now again, this one was super quick, took less than 30 minutes to make. You're cooking the steak and the asparagus at the same time, and you can throw the rice in at the end if you want to while that steak's cooling down, and you're good to go. That's a traditional option that we honestly make at least once a week. Next, I'm gonna show you a salad version that we do when we're looking to try and eat a little bit healthier. I went ahead and added some pre-cut romaine to this, but besides that, the only other thing we're gonna be adding are those onions and tomatoes, which we already cut, along with the steak, some blue cheese, and then some balsamic vinaigrette dressing. Just a 1/4 cup or so is all you really need in there. Try not to miss the bowl like me. And finally, the steak. You can use a house-made dressing if you prefer, but again, store-bought kind is going to be much quicker to do in a pinch. That's how you make a healthy meal, a delicious meal. Like I mentioned, if you're looking for that healthier option, a salad like this is a good way to go. We tend to mix them up at least every week or two, but honestly, again, super quick meal. All you're cooking is the flank steak. Everything else is just prep work. Can be done with this, and it's really as quick as 20 minutes if you wanted to. Finally, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to show you that comfort food option with those steak tacos. All right, so as you can see for our tacos, I just added some guacamole, some cotija cheese, the steak, some salsa, and then some lime juice as well. You can put whatever you want on there, but that's a quick, easy approach that I enjoy doing on a weekly basis, but feel free to customize that how you like. All right, so just as a recap, we were able to use 1 piece of flank steak for 3 separate meals. You've got your comfort food option, you've got a healthier option, and then a more traditional meat and 2 as well. All of these we're able to make in under 30 minutes, and really most of them could be made in 20 to 25. So I hope after watching this video today, you feel more comfortable grilling on a weeknight, especially when you're in crunch time and you're trying to get food on the table in under 30 minutes. Personally, flank steak's my favorite cut of meat to use in that circumstance. We use it all the time and our entire family loves them. So hope you enjoyed the tips and tricks that we shared today. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to continue to follow as we share more, as well as recipe videos that we continuously put out as well. So until next time, happy grilling.